Look for me to do a thumbs up. Rob.
Yeah. Just 1 second. Gordon's phone. I think Gordon operates off a landline. He called and I tried to merge him and I just dropped him. Hello. Okay, welcome to the Sunday afternoon edition of Sidelines, the Sunday afternoon wrap-up show. Rob Browne broadcasting live from the Cherry Farm over here in Parkin, Arkansas, and going to be joined in a minute by Jimmy Hodge, national college football and basketball contributor from Chicago. And we'll be joined as well by Gordon Ford, who should be calling in here in just a few minutes as well. Got a big show lined up, talking a lot about college football, basketball, recruiting, baseball. Right now, we got the Bucks and the Packers on right now. Brother Seg, Bright number 63 was just consumed by your crowd over there. Ditka would be proud of you Packers fans and the Bears fans eating a lot of Brights and such that Gordo.
I'm here, Duke.
Okay. We are look here right now. We've got Gordon Ford on the line with us right now. Again, now with Jimmy Hodge. And listen, we're going to be second hour, 4 o'clock. 3:30, we're going to have Mitch Davis from the MitchDavisShow.com joining us, talking college football and basketball. Heavy emphasis on basketball this first hour with Gordo, Mitch, and then 4 o'clock, Kyle Orr, who works with my friend Vince Thompson over in Atlanta with that is Media, Entertainment, Leisure, Travel. A little background on that company, founded in 2000 by Vince Thompson. A friend of mine I went to Auburn with from down in L.A., Chatham, Alabama, Washington County. They do the sports branding for Coca-Cola now for 21 years. They produce ESPN Game Day now for the last 8 years, as well as 17 straight NCAA Final Fours. This year, hopefully that's going to be another year they do the Final Four. Looks like we're going to have the tournament. We're going to get into that with Gordon here in just a minute. And we will be talking with guests and special folks throughout the next 2 hours. Those of you listening, www.sidelines.live. Weaver in the crowd sitting out there in the pit right now. What's up, Dream Weaver? You out there, they're out there. It's still duck season, deer season. Great time to be outside. It's a beautiful, overcast, kind of rainy, misty day here in Arkansas. Gotta love it. We've been eating venison chili, guys, poured over venison tamales with grated cheddar cheese and hot sauce and some cold road sodas. We've got several people in food comas on furniture laying over in front of the fire. It's a beautiful day. I also want to say this real quick before we get started about one of our sponsors we're blessed to have, Red River Ford Toyota, Wynne, Arkansas. They're closed today. John Dobbs Jr. is part of the ownership group. It's the Red River Auto Group, Wynne, Arkansas. They are going to be reopening tomorrow morning, 8:30, 9 o'clock, Monday morning, Monday through Saturday, 9 to 6 p.m., 9 a.m., 6 p.m. Easy to get to, 45 minutes from Memphis, I-40 west, like you're going to Little Rock, get off at the Forest City exit, go north, 11 miles, Highway 64. You're going back and forth to Heber Springs, Greer's Ferry, Augusta, wherever you're going, half a mile south of 64, right below the Walmart, or as they call it, a lot of people over here, the Walmarts. I never understood that one, but that's what they say. Anyway, that is Red River Ford Toyota. Justin Wynn, the general manager, Rusty Howard, the sales manager. Austin Futrell in the service department was on with us. We did a remote there Friday. These are great people to deal with. They're getting more inventory. They had a whole bunch of new trucks brought in, Toyotas and Fords yesterday. So get out there. You can get online, redriverfordtoyota.com. Justin says it can take you 10 minutes or less. If you get everything done online before you get there, you can get there and you can drive off the lot if everything is good on your application. They will work with you. Red River Ford Toyota. Without any other hesitation, let's go straight up there. Jimmy Hodge in Chicago. Jimmy, are y'all getting some snow and you're going to be driving some ducks down here? I don't care if you got to FedEx them down here. I want y'all to be snowed in like the Arctic Circle. A couple of feet of snow would do. Ice where the ducks can't feed or anything. Send them down here. But Jimmy Hodge, look, lots going on right now. Packers and Bucks, Bills and Chiefs playing, and college basketball season is cranking up right now. And let's talk about last night's SEC action.
Well, it's a pretty good example of just the unpredictability of college basketball. Missouri came into Knoxville last night and had a pretty easy time with Tennessee, and this was about 3 weeks after, Tennessee gone to Missouri and I think beat them by 20 in Columbia. It's just a classic example of just how unpredictable and really equal so many of these teams are. I mean, we've talked about it so many times about how Gonzaga and Baylor are in kind of, I guess, a class of your own, of their own, you could say. And then there's a drop off there with 3 or 4 teams. People tend to mention Michigan, Villanova, maybe even Texas. But other than that, again, there's just a huge cluster of teams after that. But really, to be truthful, once you get past the top 2, like I said, you can just throw them in a box and draw out a ticket. Anybody can beat anybody at any time. And then you had Auburn just annihilating South Carolina and Columbia. I don't think it surprised anybody. Auburn won the game, but by that margin, it was
most points scored in a long time.
Yeah, a bitter blow to Frank Martin's program, because as you know, Gordon, the fans there have been very anxious over the last couple of seasons, and last night didn't do anything to help that. And he's kind of got a reputation after a few years of kind of being hard to play for, and they've had a number of players transfer. So, I don't think all is well there. And then you had Florida that got back on track, got a nice road win in Athens. And
I think they're playing very well.
Yeah.
And obviously when they are able to get their players back, they're going to be much better. And then Ole Miss yesterday, I mean, you know what you're getting when you're playing A&M. I mean, Buzz is well aware that he has a roster that's very rarely going to score more than the mid-50s range. So Ole Miss just, did what they had to do, won the game. And, they're getting ready for a visit to Fayetteville early next week. And then Mississippi State played Alabama exactly the way you have to play them. Jake had been talking about it. You control the tempo of the game, not let them get going in transition, and then force them to take, low percentage shots if you can. And for most of the game, the strategy worked really well. It was a 3-point game with less than a minute left, and then Petty hit a huge 3 to really put the game away. But again, State is one of those teams that if you're not ready to play them, you can lose, because they're very disciplined defensively. Ben Howland is just a really good coach, and that's what you have to be for when you play them. And then we saw some frustration come out from Jerry Stackhouse yesterday after after a loss at home. He was really critical of his veteran players, and indicates they're most likely going to go with younger players from this point on, unless there's there's some kind of drastic change. And then LSU had another horrendous defensive performance yesterday in Lexington. Kentucky had their best 3-point shooting game of the year, did pretty much what they wanted to, and took care of business. And they're going to have a big game in Tuscaloosa against Bama on Tuesday. So, just like you see almost every time you have a full conference schedule, just a little bit of everything.
Yeah, let's switch gears now. You're talking about Alabama on one end of the conference, the extreme at 8-0. Gordon, Vanderbilt, what in the world is wrong with Vanderbilt basketball? The hiring Bryce Drew was basically the end of Vanderbilt basketball as we know it. They recently had their first and the only losing season in the history of Memorial Gymnasium. They've now got Jerry Stackhouse, guy with a lot of NBA experience.
Who was a terrible hire.
Yeah. And
that's all there is to it.
It's a disaster.
He had coached AAU. He coached the G League. The guy that hired him was the commissioner of the G League. before he got fired at Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
And that's what happened. Jerry Stackhouse has no college coaching, and he just did that, you know. I mean, I have no idea why he did that, but, you know, because he knew him and he tried to make a splash, and Stackhouse can't win there. What they need to do is go ahead and cut their losses, get rid of him, and get a college coach who can win. And, you know, right now they're keeping these guys around at Vanderbilt. They can't win, and it's just taking you lower and lower and lower.
Gordon,
At some point, somebody has to win. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, well, I'm going to throw this back at you and then, you know, back up to Jimmy. But you look at AAU basketball. I mean, it's the soiled linens of athletics, and it's just awful. I mean, we know, but it's just what you've got to deal with. But you've got to get somebody that embraces recruiting. It's not in the NBA or whatever. When your day is done, you can turn it off and go home. In college, basketball, football, whatever, when you leave the practice field, you're just getting started. You got to start texting and doing all the social media with 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. We know how hard it is to communicate with our own kids when they're that age. You've got to do it. You start out with a recruiting base in February, a year before national signing date the next year, with about 2,500 names, and it's going to be whittled down to 25 that you sign, okay? Most of the guys you get, you know where you stand with them early on because it's all about relationships. But Stackhouse, again, isn't making any way. It's almost as if Vanderbilt is trying to kill athletics, and that's stupid, Gordon.
I think you're right. And I don't know about this AD. I think by hiring Clark Lee was probably a pretty good move because, you know, he wants to be there and he's got, you know, connections. And I think eventually he will have them decent. Derek Mason was just a complete disaster. All anyone did was make excuses for him and talk about how great he was, and he did nothing. You will see what he does at Vanderbilt as defensive coordinator. But
at Auburn,
I think right now you've got to move on from Stackhouse and get yourself a college coach. I want to say he's got a couple of NBA assistants on that staff, and I kind of compare him to what Memphis has done, but at least Penny Hardaway's getting players. Stackhouse ain't getting nobody.
Yeah, and let me say this too. You talk about Derek Mason. I've said for years, you could tell early on. I mean, yeah, he had a couple of 500 seasons. He's an excellent defensive coordinator.
No, sir, he didn't have a 500 season. He was like he did starting out, and then they lost, and he was under 500.
No, but when they lost their bowl game, they were under 500. I'm saying that. But as a
that's
head coach,
what I mean. I mean, they were under 500 then. That's correct.
Yeah. You're in athletic administration. If they're not committed to winning, you don't need to be a coach at that particular school. And I'll say something else. The old saying, if a dog will bite, he'll do it when he's a pup. How many years do you have to watch a coach continually fail like Bryce Drew did and now Stackhouse to know they are not the right fit? And Auburn had
Bryce Drew's first year, they weren't that bad. In his last year, the team turned on him. I mean, they went to the AD. They didn't want to play for him. Darius Garland was out. They went in there and virtually, they weren't going to fire him at first. And they went in there and his players dogged him out, said a lot of derogatory things, that he didn't know what he was doing, wasn't a leader and all that. And that's what got him fired.
Well,
but
he's got the pedigree.
But going defeated in the SEC, I can't remember when that's happened.
No, really. And Vanderbilt this past year in football, they've had a lot of bad years in the last 50 plus years, but they did something this past year they'd never done in their long history since 1892. They went winless. I mean, good grief. They've either got to decide to commit to athletics, to winning, or they're wasting time. It's not fair. You can talk all you want about the education that you get there, and that's wonderful. You can get an education. The school books, the textbooks, no matter where you go, they're all the same. It's how deep you want to dig. Jimmy Hodge, look, you grew up there in Knoxville and Clinton, Tennessee. You're up in Chicago looking down on the South and around the country. You got a different perspective. You tell me. Vanderbilt has a national name, but in athletics, they look like they're ashamed to commit to winning, and that's an excellent school. But they've gotten, again, you get elitist pinheads there running a school. They destroy athletics. Look at Texas. Look at Michigan. Look what they're doing. Somebody better step in at Tennessee with a strong resolve, or Tennessee is going to become distant, ancient history. Tennessee, Vanderbilt, both in the same state. Memphis has a president, Dr. David Rudd. 65-26 is their football record in the AAC in the 7 years since he's become the president. But you got to have leadership, Jimmy. Talk about that.
Well, absolutely. And I think one of the big problems in the last 3 years that sent Vandy athletics skyrocketing was not long after I think the media days in 2017. The I guess the chancellor at Vandy made a statement that basically the uh, the boosters had made it be known that they weren't going to make any additions or renovations to Dudley Field, which has been the Vanderbilt football stadium for 70 years now, and we all know it's kind of just an eyesore to the SEC. It's they've made no improvements on it, and anytime Vandy plays a home game during the football season, every visiting team in the conference has probably twice as many fans in the stadium as the Commodores do, and it's just football is almost a necessary evil there. They want to collect their 1/14 of the money from the SEC meetings, in Destin every year, which is now almost $50 million. But it just doesn't make sense that they're getting their share of the TV money and so forth, that they wouldn't at least try to be competitive in football. And it all comes down to the administration. I mean, Gordon Gee always did like athletics. And then you had, and also what killed him too, was well, for a while they weren't even using the person responsible for the athletic department. And they didn't even refer to him as the athletic director, but it was David Turner.
David Williams.
David Williams, and he was the associate president. He did a great job, and then he died of a heart attack suddenly. And then by the end of the year, then you end up with Malcolm Turner, and Gordon has pretty much accurately described about what happened since then. So, and when he gets fired in his first year, and Stackhouse's first season, now you're reaching another administrative nightmare, and that is you've got a coach who's in over his head, but yet you have a new AD coming in who is in the uncomfortable position of firing somebody as soon as he gets in the door, which isn't going to happen, but it very well could after this season. But overall, it's just a hot mess. And the only bright thing at Vanderbilt right now is baseball.
It is, and bowling.
That's correct.
Bowling now. Don't forget the women's bowling team.
Yes, women's bowling is excellent. Yes,
they are great bowling.
But one thing, guys, you look at prior Vanderbilt coaches. They ran Kevin Stallings off. He got stale. They were tired of him. I mean, he had a 332 and 220 record. Jan Van Bredekolt, they couldn't stand him there. Fired him, but he was winning.
Yeah.
Eddie Fogler did a great job. C.M. Newton. I mean, you can just go on. Roy Skinner. And they had tradition in basketball. And these new people are coming in and killing it.
Yep.
They're not making the effort, guys. And the administration has to better get off their ass and start being committed to winning. Or they need to just look. They're getting $50 million. They're getting a chunk of. There's got to be means testing, I think, with athletic programs. Okay, if all you want to do is say, "Well, we're committed there to the student athlete," you're insulting the other 13 schools in the league, or any school that says that. I really get tired of that, because I know a lot of people that graduated from Tennessee, Ole Miss, Auburn, Arkansas, Memphis. It doesn't matter. They're hard workers. They're smart people. Ben Franklin said it best. The world is full of brilliant, talented people who are miserable failures because they're so impressed with themselves. They think that that's all it takes. There's a lot more to life than that. I think they need to just cut Stackhouse now. I mean, they're dead last. You can't have a 15th place in the SEC, or Vanderbilt would be 15th. You know what? They need to be called out.
But he's not even recruiting well. There's not a lot you
Nothing.
can say that. Well, good about it.
Yeah. I mean, if you're a head football coach, your number one job is to go find the best talent available. Tim Corbin, what was Vanderbilt baseball before Tim Corbin took over? He put a 250-mile net around Nashville. said, I will get the best baseball players in the 250-mile web around us.
And won the national championship.
Twice. He's won it twice. And it's just crazy to believe it. But hey, let's switch gears, guys. Let's think about this. LSU has fallen a little bit. They are, 5-3, 10-4 overall. Florida, Tennessee's lost a couple of games in a row. But let's look at Kentucky. Everybody knows the one and done thing that Calipari does. Gordon, Jimmy said it a couple of weeks ago. It looks like he's just got a bad crop of one and dones. Mitch Davis will be on with us in the next half hour. Doesn't really agree with that, but a coach can get bored. Calipari already went to the NBA once before. He didn't have great success. He came back to college. You've got people like Worldwide West out there and all these handlers and people that you got to deal with. But Kentucky basketball, that's why, how many national championships has Cal won? One in 2012.
One.
I know, exactly. How many Final Fours has he been to?
Tim Corbin's won 2 in baseball.
Yeah.
He's got less facilities than Cal.
and less scholarships. 11 and a half scholarships for a whole baseball team. They have to share them because of Title IX. And by the way, that's a whole show, Gordon and Jimmy, we could do because
but that's one thing though that he has done though. What you have to do to be successful in the SEC though, he has a track record of producing major league players, and prospects are drawn to that, and they have a great baseball facility.
No, they do.
And so that's two things that they don't have in the other sports.
Well, but football, they've really improved. Kroger Field has come a long way. Mark Stoops this past year, everybody.
No. Oh, I'm sorry. I got mixed up with Vandy because that's so bad. I couldn't get that off my mind for a second.
I know it's bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm telling you what. Gordon, after we whipped a dead horse again, it was just so painful. I couldn't get my mind off it.
I mean,
you know what? One thing, Jimmy, you mentioned as the start of this show, the Tennessee-Missouri game. And I watched that game, and Missouri has been shooting very bad from three-point. They go in against Tennessee and just blow them out. And then Conzo Martin, who was a coach at Tennessee, who they didn't like, and, he probably wasn't a good coach there, but, he basically has rebuilt himself. And, I'm sure it was a pleasure. But, one of the things I noticed that you watched their big men, that being Missouri.
Number 20, number 23, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. When they threw them the ball, they had very educated moves. They drop stepped and went down low and threw over, their guards threw over Fulkerson, and he wasn't in there a whole lot. But, and just basically just blew them out. And Tennessee, to me, watching that game, did not look ready to play, did not look fired up.
No, and there really wasn't a reason for it because I think they have a little time off after this game. And so they could have, had a couple of days to take a blow there. But, yeah, Missouri jumped out early, and they just never let them get back in the game.
That's right. They never got back.
Hey, here's the question. You look at Quanzo Martin. He goes to Missouri. Missouri Athletics, Eli Drinkowitz with football, they had a good run there where they won like 5 or 6 games and fell off there at the end of the season. They've always been – I know the first 2 years they were in the SEC in football, 2012 and 13. Well, 2 of the first 3 years, they went to the SEC championship, played Auburn and Alabama, gave up over 100 points in those 2 games. If Georgia's down or Florida or Tennessee's down, Missouri has a chance to make a good run. Well, look, Tennessee's been down for a while. Georgia looks like they're going to be the best team in the league next year in football. Florida's on a 3-game losing streak. You had a boatload of players quit on them. Don't use that dang phony euphemism, opting out. It's just quit. They quit on them. I mean, you cannot – there's no other way. They quit. And Jimmy, you made a great point. And Gordon, what's your thoughts on this? Jimmy made a great point a couple of weeks ago. Talking about these guys that are, quote, opting out, quitting. There's going to be
guys not playing.
I think it's not good. I mean, it's just not a good thing.
Yeah.
Then again, I mean, that's all, part of the transfer portal. I mean, any day, I mean, say Jimmy could be starting wide receiver at Tennessee and get up one morning and his cousin called and said, man, you probably get a better deal here at Oklahoma, and he could just get up and leave. I mean, that's just the way it is now, man. That's the way these kids think.
But you know
That's what
what?
Henry To'o's going to do.
Well, I'll tell you what.
That linebacker.
I mean, that's what they're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
And look at Graham. I mean, what's his name? Graham from Tennessee, the running back. I mean, he's leaving.
Eric Gray.
You know,
yeah. Eric Gray.
Gray.
Here's the thing is, who is Tennessee going to hire as their coach? And you would think by hiring White like they did, that they're going to go get a coach now.
Jimmy.
Yeah,
And,
the word is,
about,
Gordon, the three guys right now being mentioned, which I think all would be three really good choices, are Tony Elliott at Clemson. If you want to go the younger route, and somebody that could, I think, really give some energy to the program, PJ Fleck at Minnesota. And you're also hearing Sonny Dykes at SMU. Those are the three names. Since Danny White took the job that are being mentioned most. Before that, it was some other guy.
Jamie Chadwell, Coastal Carolina.
Getting Tony Elliott, though, would be probably the move that you think, because by hiring a black coach, and when you go on probation, you get pressured to do that. They don't hammer you as hard. So you might see Tony Elliott get that job.
I don't think race. I mean, I really don't think if he black coach, white coach, I don't think anybody really cares about that. I think if you think that way,
I'm telling you that the Black Coaches Association puts pressure on these people.
Well,
and you'll get a little
coach.
leeway on the NCAA. I mean, that's proven.
Yeah, but hire the best.
Yeah, you've
coach.
had a couple of coaches fired. Yeah, and so forth. But the association with Clemson and their success, over the last decade,
I
is
think
just going to be a big selling point with everybody. Yeah.
I think one deal for Tennessee is ninth winningest program in the history of college football, great tradition, 105,000, selling out every game for years. But again, my wife Audrey made a point this morning in the early morning here. It's going to take a legend to replace a legend. Well, Phil Fulmer, the longer he sticks around, and I like Phil Fulmer, but he was big, and I was a big fan of Jeremy Pruitt as a coach, but I don't know him. I didn't realize his social skills. He's not the easiest person to get along with. And, there's issues. I mean, and now he's gone. Tennessee, they've got to get this cabal of people in the academic side that don't want athletics to succeed. There's no other way to say what's going on up there from my vantage point than to say there's a group of people on the inside of that university that want athletics to fail. They want to emasculate that university's culture, and they're doing it. They've done a darn good job of it. And what's it gotten them? I bet you donations are way down.
But out of curiosity, guys, I hear what you're saying, Rob. Well, why Sonny Dykes all of a sudden? I mean, I'm seeing his name too, and I think he is a great coach, but I don't understand why he's all of a sudden got in the thick of it, because I don't think TJ Fleck will take that job.
Yeah, well, one reason, Gordon, is because when he went to Louisiana Tech, he his time there turned that into a job that coaches were actually interested in, and Skip Holt's gone there and done a fine job. And he went to a moribund Cal program in 2015, and I mean, he made them competitive in within 2 years. Maybe 3, and then since then, Kyle's kind of back to where they are. And now at SMU, he's really on track to turn a juggernaut around. Yeah, he's an excellent veteran coach, and he's a guy I think that would be really could work with the administration, and he would be a huge hit with high school football coaches. He's the type of guy, being a Texas-grown son of a legendary coach, Spike Dykes, that would personally, when he went out on the road to see prospects, he would also make sure he would develop relationships with the prominent high school coaches in every area of the country that he recruits. So I think he'd be a solid choice.
Wait, what about this one, guys? What about Matt Campbell at Iowa State? You hear his name mentioned as well, but I will say this. Chad Morris came from SMU to Arkansas. He's a pretty damn good recruiter. He's not a great head coach. He was in high school. It's a big difference between high school and college. Gus Malzahn was a great high school coach, but he was an 8-5 college coach. I know about the 2013 team he had at Auburn when he choked the national championship away with Florida State. And good gosh, go back to he never got over that. But you better get you somebody that you can give them complete autonomy. I know that Brian Harsin, that's one of the deals when he came to Auburn. I want complete autonomy. Nick Saban, it's what he did, like Rodney Orr said on Friday's edition of Sidelines.live. It was what Saban did before he came to Alabama. He goes, I'm going to be in charge. Clear? Capiche? Mal Moore said, you got it. You either let that happen, give that freedom to the head coach, or you're going to have all kinds of board meetings with a room full of guys like J.R. Ewing wearing suits and cowboy boots and cowboy hats with all kinds of money. And basically nobody is able to stand up and be a leader because it's all, my bank account's bigger than your bank account. You got to be able to keep these people under control. And that's why Nick Saban is so successful at Alabama. And Texas, I mean, man, you got guys, boosters that have lockers in the locker room. I mean, come on, talk about jock sniffers. I mean, good grief. That's dangerous, guys. You know what? I remember seeing something about leadership. Going to the Press Box Cafe in Columbus, Georgia, when I was a TV reporter, I'd see a captain in the Ranger Battalion or a first lieutenant coming in and see a bunch of his enlisted men over in the corner playing quarters with 5 pitchers of beer, having a ball on a Friday night. And they turn around, they go, where are you going? They go, those are my men. I put them through enough, grief, but buy them 3 pitchers and put it on my tab. I'll see you later. You've got to give your guys freedom. And don't micromanage them too much. Don't give them too much damn paperwork. Let people be free to coach. And guys, when you're a head coach, you find out, and agree or disagree with me, guys, you really don't get to do that much coaching unless you have a great staff. And the one constant with Alabama, in 13 of the last 14 seasons, Nick Saban's had at least one assistant coach leave for a head coaching job. One of them is Billy Napier. He was with Dabo at Clemson, Saban at Alabama. But his most successful head coach on the big stage is Kirby Smart. Kirby Smart, after 5 years, I know we only played a 10-game regular season this year, but he has almost an identical record to the first 5 years of Mark Richt. Say what you want about Mark Richt. He was a nice guy. We know all that, okay? Tell me something I don't know. But Mark Richt won 2 SEC championships in his first 5 seasons. Kirby's got 1, although he's won the SEC East 3 times. He's got 1 SEC championship and 1 real close loss. Devontae Smith, touchdown, Alabama. We know about that.
Now, Rick did win 2 SEC championships in his first 4 seasons and 3 SEC East titles.
Yeah.
But really, strangely enough, since I thought really when Brian Van Gorder left and he replaced him with his college roommate at Miami, Willie Martinez.
Oh, yeah.
That really what started a downward trend. But as far as this Tennessee situation goes, I think everybody that's involved in the decision-making process at Tennessee, they got off to a good start being able to land Danny White, but this hire has to be right because this next coach will be Tennessee's 6th head football coach since 2008, if you can imagine that.
And think about this, guys.
Out of curiosity, Jimmy, when do you think this will happen? I think it's going to happen fairly quick at the rate they're moving.
By Wednesday.
I mean,
It'll
that
happen by
chancellor
Wednesday.
up there is upset, and I think they're going to probably pull the trigger in the next week or so, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I agree. I think about midweek they have to. I mean, even though the chances aren't good of landing, anybody significant in this late signing period, you still have to make the effort and just establish.
But you got people in the
presence.
transfer portal. That's what you got to say.
Yes, that's true. Yeah. Oh, no question about it. But you obviously you can't neglect any late deciders in the high school ranks, and just let them know that you're out there. We're out there. If we can't get these players now, privately, that they're going out with that attitude and saying, at least we're out. You're going to be seeing us a lot, and if you can let us know, or be aware of players that can play, and we get a recommendation, we'll at least investigate it. And then if we like what we see, then we're going to put some, full court pressure out there on these guys. And if they want to play early and get a chance to play in the strongest division in college football, we're going to give them a shot if they're good enough. So, I mean, every school in SEC, guys, has selling points.
Yeah.
Whether you're an elite team, you're Alabama, Georgia, or you're a middle of the pack team or a lower tier team, everybody's got something to sell. Vandy, hey, you can get immediate playing time. We've got a quality coaching staff. I'm kind of impressed with the way Clark Lee has come out there, and he's got a plan. He played at Vandy. He knows the culture, and he's bringing in
Rick Minner's son. I mean, he's done some good things.
Hey, guys, let's pause real quick. Got to take a quick commercial break. Gordon Ford, hang on with us. Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago. Gordon Ford in Memphis. Rob Browne here with you from Parkin, Arkansas, the Cherry Farm, looking at it, Crowley's Ridge. I want to say something about one of our sponsors, Tom Dorian, the Dorian Insurance Agency. Check them out on our website at sidelines.live. Audrey and I work with Tom. He is our insurance agent, life insurance, homeowners, property and casualty. Work with Tom, work with his team. Have that conversation. Find out if you have enough insurance or if you have too much. He is honest. He will tell you. Father of 5, CBHS graduate, University of Memphis graduate, 3-year starter on the offensive line in college football. Everybody's All-American, Tom Dorian. 6240 Poplar Avenue. Give him a call, 901-328-5858. And if you are like most Americans, you might go years between making a claim on your insurance. Hey, they've got a program that can allow you to get up to 25% return of premium. The Dorian Agency. That's your man. Everybody's All-American, Tom Dorian. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be with you till 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. east of the Chattahoochee, the Caney Fork, and the Johns River down in Palatka, Florida, Alachua County down there. Great bass fishing, by the way. We're talking some hoops and football and everything with Gordon Ford, Jimmy Hodge, and we'll be with you till 5 p.m. Central. Be right back. Okay, here we go. Guys, I'll be right back. I know.
I'm going to go eat.
Yeah, Gordon. I think Ole Miss ought to have a pretty good shot at Arkansas.
I think they do too, because Arkansas is up and down. You notice that they're getting. I mean, Connor Vanover started the other night in the game I watched against Auburn, and they just yanked him because Musselman. He's, they're trying to freeze him out of that defensive quickness.
Yeah. And, they were, they're just at this point, I mean, it's Musselman's a second year, but they're a schizo team, they get down by 20 to Auburn and then come back and
win.
Yeah.
I watched that game.
Well, but what bothered me about both teams was that, I mean, Arkansas's last 3 possessions were horrendous. And then on the final,
I'll tell you what's horrendous, watching the whole league. I mean, you don't know who's who with the exception of Alabama. I watched the Ole Miss game, and, Texas A&M committed like 28 turnovers. I mean, it was like a kid's game, people dribbling into double teams and getting the ball taken away. It was terrible shooting, it was just bad.
The games.
And then LSU, they just jacket it, Will.
Time out. We're coming back. Hey, 5 seconds. Okay. I did them top of the hour. I'll do them again at 4.
Tell you what, Michael White's doing a good job.
Okay, Rob Browne back here with you. Gordon Ford with us in Memphis. Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago. Broadcasting here from Parkin, Arkansas, out at the Cherry Farm. Be with you till 5 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Eastern. Remember, Sidelines always Fridays 3 to 5. The podcast on our website, www.sidelines.live, 3 to 5 p.m. Central on Fridays, 8 to 10 a.m. Saturday mornings, Sports 56 WHBQ, sports56whbq.com website, sidelines.live website always, and the Sunday afternoon wrap-up show always 3 to 5 p.m. Central, and we're always live, and you can check out on our website. If you missed the live show, all podcasts are archived, as well as the hyperlinks to all of our sponsors we're so blessed to have. We are loving this, having a lot of fun. let's get this conversation going again. Guys, we were talking a lot about Vanderbilt, Tennessee, all the things going on in college athletics. And y'all talk about the transfer portal. I'm going to start with you, Gordon. This immediate transfer with no repercussions, a one-time deal. You know, how many times have we seen a wheel tax or something like that? Oh, it's just a temporary tax. How many times have we actually seen those rescinded? Never. You better be careful about this stuff. And how can you as a coach and how can you as a member of a team trust the people around you if they wake up tomorrow morning and feel like, I feel like, going to your biggest rival just because they want to, or somebody made them mad. This is not how the real world works. Sports and college are supposed to prepare you and teach you about the lessons of life. Gordon, counter that or agree or disagree, but it's all yours.
No, I agree with you totally. I thought it was bad when they first put it out, because what you're going to do is that, you're going to have teams all of a sudden, decide they want someone else. Or say, for instance, if a guy was from Alabama and all of a sudden he wanted to play for Auburn all his life and he's played well at Virginia Tech, I mean, he could just get up and go,
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that's, Virginia Tech's counting on the guy. So, I mean, it's not right.
Yeah, I hate it. Jimmy Hodge, what do you think?
You invested in him.
Yeah, and here's another thing. We brought this up the last couple of days, Gordon. Universities have invested over years literally billions into their athletic and academic facilities on every campus, especially the major schools, some more than others, but it's a huge investment. And I'm tired of this garbage narrative that these are just beaten down, just, they're taken advantage of student athletes. Again, I'll compare this to, how about an enlisted, an NCO, a first sergeant or a staff sergeant in the Army or the Marine Corps, whatever. He's going to teach an officer how to be an officer. Any officer that's honest will tell you that, okay? But you don't see them complaining and opting out or quitting. They can't just say, hey, I'm not feeling up to fighting today. And it's the same thing in the real world, in business. You can't just leave. I mean, look, the grass might be greener on the other side of the fence, but I guarantee you this, it still will have to be cut, okay? You are never going to have anything easy in your life except failure. You don't even have to try to do that, okay? And it doesn't take much effort, but these athletes are given free room and board. Well, they work for it. They earn it. They're given cost of attendance money. It averages out to most schools about $1,000 a month spending money. Ask people and adjust it for inflation and do all that. Ask people that did you get $1,000 a month spending money after you paid your rent and you paid for your food and your medical care? Look, they have access to the best medical care, the best everything. We got to stop giving in and kowtowing to this false narrative being pushed by the whiner nation. Jimmy?
Well, I mean, these are the people on the NCAA rules committee that are okaying these type of rule changes. I mean,
get rid of them.
If the people at the top are allowing it, I mean, I don't know what you can do to stop it. But again, what I am concerned about is that you don't start having some schools starting to abuse that rule. In other words, if maybe you lost a kid that previous December in the early signing period that you thought he went to another school, he gets to that other school and things aren't working out there the way he would like, you can be in danger of encountering situations where that spurned school maybe starts tampering with that player while he's still at his previous school. There's all kinds of just really ugly scenarios that can develop with this thing. And I think we will have to wait for it to go into effect next season, see how it works out. And then just, after a season, we can evaluate what parts of the rule were good and what parts were bad, and then fine tune it and make changes. But I think if you ever start to discover situations where certain schools are tampering with other schools, that if they are found out or caught in the act, that you just give them a bowl ban or playoff ban for a whole season and start, letting.
Well, let me just say, I remember something similar to what you just said, Jimmy. This isn't an attack on you. It's an observation and it's a remembrance. We'll have to first pass the bill so we'll know what's in it. You remember that one? But I digress. Yeah. Okay. We better be very careful with that. And I'm going to tell you something. Get rid of these clowns on the NCAA board, the governors and all that. Get rid of them. Hey, scorched earth policy. It's a SEP. I love it. Scorched earth policy, SEP. Get the people up there you've got that have some balls. Okay. You cannot continue to you cannot keep caving in to these people. You've got to stand your ground, because if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for everything. And that's where we are right now, Gordon.
Rob, I do want to tell you something, that the Buccaneers are up 21-10 and just caused a fumble on the 10-yard line and about to get the ball to go in and score.
Well, the neighbors had the blinds pulled up and they just pulled them down. So I was watching the game. And so thank you for the update. Mr. Sag, I know you've got everybody over there in East Memphis at your compound at Packersville, USA, eating some brats and some schnitzel and some kraut. The game's not over, but that's pretty significant, guys. Wow.
But they're about to spit up those brats, combined with the fact that Tampa Bay threw a 50-yard touchdown pass with 1 second left on the clock in the first half.
Well,
when everybody thought it was just going, it's going to be 14-10. So now it's 21-10, and with the chance to go up 28-10.
Let me throw this one at
not
both.
Looking real good.
Yeah, I'm gonna throw this one at both of y'all. Remember earlier in the season, both matchups, and I always judge by the best team a team has to play. In both matchups, Tampa Bay Bucks versus the New Orleans Saints, the Saints crushed the Buccaneers. And here they are.
They killed them.
I know. And here's Tom Brady and Gronk and all those guys just steady.
43 years old.
Yeah, amazing. That's not old. He takes care of himself. Isn't he a complete vegan?
For an NFL quarterback, it is.
Oh, yeah, sure it is. Yeah, absolutely. Of course, guys, we're all old enough to remember George Blanda. He was about 70 when he retired. I mean, that guy
won the MVP.
He was a punter at the end.
Yeah.
But he won the MVP, though, when he came in relief of Stabler and won about 6 games in a row,
Steve DeBerg, he was pretty old when he was up there.
Yes, he was. And, And, well, of course, now in this game today, that Tampa New Orleans game last week, though, that was 16 weeks after they played the first time in the opener.
You talk about you talk about the Packers. You can't help but
no.
remember.
I'm talking about the Saints.
No. Yeah. I'm just talking about
Buccaneers when they played last.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the Packers. Though you think about the one of many great quotes attributed to Vincent Lombardi, and he said, "The dictionary is the only place where success comes before work." Alphabetically speaking.
Oh,
I mean, that was
28-10.
Wow.
It's 28-10 right now.
28-10 right now. The Buccaneers leading the Packers. Sag, hang in there, Sag. It's going to be okay. Guys, you wouldn't believe what we had over here for dinner Friday night.
I know we're not a pro football show, but it's just kind of amazing that they're coming in there shocking them like this.
It is amazing. I mean, we were
but none of those players would be on the field without college football.
Yeah. That's right.
So it is connected.
Yeah, it is. Exactly. But let me say this. But guys, this is the point. In business or anything, you've got to be able to build a team. Sure, you're free to go if things are so bad, but we've got, you think about these kids, they are told you demand so early. Look, I'm all for instilling confidence in your children. Gordon, you got 2. Jimmy, you got kids. I got kids. But you know what? Don't try to be their friend. I guarantee you, all these parents that are out here listening that have kids, you probably would agree with me. If you've got your own friends, and if you wanted friends, you wouldn't want them like your kids. It's just a different relationship. That's where we are. I've heard athletic directors in high school tell me to my face, they have 6th and 7th grade parents calling for meetings with them to tell them where they want their son to play on the basketball team or the football team. I mean, are you kidding me? Man, when I went to high school, You went in there and talked to brother Stephen O'Malley at CBHS at 5900 Walnut Grove Road, and you tried to tell him your family had a bunch of money or whatever and blah, blah, blah. He'd sit there and look at you, and he'd take about as much as he could. And if I'm not mistaken, the man was a graduate of Northwestern, had a PhD in mathematics, was the former city handball champion in Chicago. That's pretty tough, man. He had hands as thick as country hams. He'd turn around and he'd say, all right, enough. We've been here since 1871. It's 1982. He'd look at the crucifix and he'd say, we have one job here, to educate young boys and turn them into great men, great future leaders. If you don't like it here, leave. We run this school, not you. You can't have the kids running the programs. And I'm all about excitement about recruiting, but the hat trick and all that kind of stuff. Really? Hey, I'm going to tell you something. What these kids really want, what they're craving, and they want more than anything, they want discipline. They want the bar to be raised. That's what you get in college athletics. You know, these are great people. That's why we're having football and basketball, because of the discipline, guys. But man, it's like Groundhog Day. We keep seeing this stuff, and the NCAA's got to vote about this transfer, this immediate transfer thing, and very likely they will cave in. They are going to regret it. We're going to be joined here in about 8 minutes by Kyle Orr, our friend from Melt, Atlanta, and they do work with name, image, and likeness. They look at branding and all. They work with everybody. They produce ESPN Game Day, the NCAA Final Four, Coca-Cola Sports Marketing and Branding. They handle probably $1 billion worth of accounts. This is big stuff, people. But we're going to talk about, and Kyle Orr brought this up, guys, a few weeks ago. The NCAA, well, name, image, and likeness, where the bowls are going to start offering financial incentives for these guys to play in the bowl games. This isn't the first time bowl attendance has suffered or the bowls have been in trouble, whatever like that. But real quick, I'm all for, Jake Crain he'll be with us at 4 as well. I'm all for an 8-team playoff. Jimmy, real quick, your thoughts on that before we get to the top of the hour. And then Gordon, and I know, Gordon, you've got to leave at 4 to go to bowling practice, but we got 7 minutes more with Gordo.
No, I got to take care of Homer. So
that's right. The big dog. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Yeah, well, if this game keeps going the way it is, Homer might be asleep again. You might not have to worry about him for a while.
That's right.
But
he's sitting here getting his belly rubbed right now.
well, you know, oh golly, we started talking about Homer. I lost my train of thought there. You were talking. What was the question again, Rob? I'm sorry.
About the 8-team playoff.
8-team
yeah,
playoff.
I think it's a great idea because, again, after this pandemic season, I mean, just dollars and cents, that's going to register even with the presidents of the universities that many don't care for college athletics at all. They'd like to do without them, but you can't deny the amount of money it's going to bring in. But again, I mentioned it time after time, by going to an 8-team playoff, at least you're going to have all 5 Power 5 conference champions in, and that will stop 80% of the whining. And now with Larry Scott out, finally, 5 years late as Pac-12 commissioner, maybe they'll have a competitive a representative out of that conference when we do go to 8 teams, and get them involved in the college football landscape again, because they've just been non-existent over the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. Gordo, what do you think?
I think he's right. And, Larry Scott, that guy made the Three Stooges a reality. I'm not lying to you.
No doubt. No doubt.
But I'm going to tell you, you do need to go to an 8-team, because think about, you had Notre Dame and Ohio State and all those teams in there. Well, at the end of the day, Texas A&M, what were they? They were 12 or 13-1 or something like that. I mean, really and truly, they have a gripe for being, in the thick of stuff, and, they weren't even picked. So, yeah, they were left out when they should have been in. So I totally agree.
Yeah, and A&M North Carolina game was fairly close. It was tied with about 5 minutes to go, and A&M got a couple of touchdowns late. I don't know if A&M's a great team, but they did win 10 games. They went 10-1.
I didn't think they were either, but they did what they were supposed to do.
I know they did, and they had a quarterback that broke every record in A&M history. But he also started most of the 4 years he was there when he came out of high school in San Antonio. Kellen Mond was a big-time quarterback, dual threat guy. Johnny Manziel only really played 2 seasons and set all kind of records. But I'll tell you what, Jimbo Fisher, it ain't going to be like it used to be around here. That's right. Kevin Summerlin was the Gus Malzahn of A&M, an 8-5 coach. He was on a gravy train with biscuit wheels. The state of Texas right in his hand for recruiting, $8.5–9 billion endowment. How do you screw that up? But you know what? It's a lack of focus, guys. And that lack of focus is what causes schools to fail. And let's go back to this Tennessee thing real quick. Billy Napier is a coach at Louisiana Lafayette. He's been with Dabo at Clemson. He's been with Saban in Alabama. He checks those boxes, okay? He's done a tour of duty, okay? But, again, 13 of the last 14 seasons, Nick Saban has lost an assistant to becoming a head coach. Why are those guys not going out and having big-time success? Jimmy, I want you to answer that real quick, and then back to you, Gordo.
Well, lots of times those guys aren't going to programs that have been successful. Otherwise, that school wouldn't have been making a change. And and coaches, lots of times, assistant coaches, when they're looking at their first head coaching job, they don't consider all the circumstances at many times, because if you become a head coach, even if it's not at a Power 5, it still gives you the opportunity to be a head coach and run your own program. And if you use the lessons of the process that you picked up under Saban, and you've got good enough players to be able to have immediate success, if you really can build a string of 2 or 3, 4 successful seasons in a row, all of a sudden you are in a position to be a head coach at a Power 5 school where, and lots of times these guys that have been in the college game 15, 20 years, a head coach at any Power 5 school now is going to be, making in the neighborhood of $2 million, and you're thinking about your family, and you work so hard that, hey, I can take care of them. And in a worst case scenario, if I get a good staff, we give it our best effort. And even if it doesn't work out for us, we're still in 2 or 3 years, or maybe even 4 years, I've taken care of my family financially. And, I'm really in a good position, the rest of my life. And then even then, if it doesn't work out as a head coach at a Power 5 school, I can still be a coordinator and be a really significant part of any program. But all these guys have different ideas of how they're going to proceed with their career. For some, it's that eventual opportunity. Just moving to an elite conference as a head coach, and just being in charge of an entire program, which even, it doesn't matter what level of football is, you're going to be responsible for 100 people.
Yeah.
They look forward to that challenge. So there's all kinds of intangibles that all of these guys are kind of looking for. Not all of them are think that, hey, I'm going to go out my first head coaching job and have a 800 winning percentage or anything like that.
Yeah.
So everybody has a different.
Yeah. Well, let me say this. Hey, Gordo, real quick, your closing comments before we go. We'll take a break here at the top of the hour. We'll be on again another hour, 4 to 5 p.m. Central, 5 to 6 Eastern. But Gordon, give us your closing arguments, and then you go take care of Homer and take him for a walk.
My closing comment is on that question that you just asked is, with the exception of Jeremy Pruitt, and you can throw Muschamp in there, but Muschamp took a detour from Saban. Okay.
Yeah.
Jim McElwain, they just kind of ran him out of Florida, but if you look overall, man, he won the division 2 years in a row, was 9-4. And,
Yep.
and then he did, and he's at Eastern Michigan or Central Michigan or one of those places doing well. So
Yep.
other
He was the
And
Pacific
maybe
Northwest guy.
Muschamp, and like I said, he took a detour from Saban.
Yeah.
Jeremy Pruitt's probably the biggest failure.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know,
He's an
Yeah,
X's
and
and
I
O's
think the
guy.
other
Done a good
guys
job.
have done fairly decent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Sarkisian will do a tremendous job at Texas.
I
I
agree.
truly believe he will have them back.
You know what, Jeremy?
And that's my closing
Yeah,
comment.
let me just say this before we take a break. Jeremy Pruitt reminds me a lot of a quote that I've heard my dad say over the years, being an architect. Engineers and accountants are not boring people. They tend to get excited though about boring things. That's just and Jeremy is an X's and O's guy. He's not into the big picture. He doesn't want to go hobnob with people at a cocktail party and drink beer and hang out and stuff. He's from Fife, Sand Mountain, Alabama, man. He's the son of a coach. All he wants to do is coach. Gordon Ford, thank you so much for your time. Hey, Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago. Hang on with
Have
us.
a great weekend, guys.
Hey, you
Bye-bye.
do too.
Okay, Gordon.
Hey, we've got Kyle Orr on with us now from over in Atlanta from Melt, and Jake Crain, host of the JBoy podcast, #1 in the country, over 250 episodes in the first 8 months out of Tupelo. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Another hour to go. This is the Sunday afternoon wrap-up show, Sidelines.live. Got it? Okay. Hey, Kyle.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, man. Hey, good, man. Got Jake Crain.
Kyle, what's up?
Hey, man.
Hey,
Thanks for
that's
being
Jake.
on. And Jimmy Hodge up here.
Yeah,
We've been
yeah,
talking a lot in the first hour, guys, about covered a lot of SEC basketball, a lot of football, the Tennessee coaching search, the transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, and all that stuff. So, Kyle, when we come back, we'll get cranking in. And I know, you talked about a few weeks ago about something I want to expand on when we come out of the break. Remember, you said that the bowls will start providing financial incentives to get guys rather than to quit, which is what a lot of people call opt out, but to quit on their teams. I think they're quitters.
Right.
And it pisses me off, but that's another story. But that is what we're talking about. And they're going to be, you mentioned the $8 billion figure, and we're still on a commercial break. So it may be going up to 16 billion. It kind of break that down in detail. Is that advertising, money generated, TV, everything for college athletics, or?
That is correct. And
Okay.
that is just from corporations and companies invested in NCAA.
Okay. All right. How much longer if we come back, Audrey?
40 seconds.
Okay, 40 seconds. Okay. Yeah. And I'll just introduce you, and then we'll get Jake Crain and Jimmy and I, and we're going to get going. And hey, Jake, man, that basketball game, Auburn, South Carolina, that was crazy. State of Georgia.
Different.
Yeah, it's crazy. Okay. 15 seconds, guys. Almost.
Turn your mic on.
Okay, here we go. All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Another hour to go on the Sunday afternoon wrap-up show, www.sidelines.live. Great first hour with Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, Gordon Ford in Memphis. Gordo's got to go take care of Homer, that big, giant Great Dane of his. He's, I guess he's 8 feet tall. He's bigger than Bigfoot. But we're going to now be joined by Kyle Orr of Melt, Atlanta. Media, entertainment, leisure, travel. Look them up on the web. They are the company that does the branding for Coca-Cola 20 plus years, 8 years of ESPN Game Day, 17 straight NCAA Final Fours, among other things. Also, Jake Crain, host of the JBoy podcast, is here with us. And let's do this. I want to get started. We'll go to Jake first. Jake, Kyle is there in Atlanta, in Buckhead, the largest college sports market in America, 6 million people, 22 counties, the metro Atlanta area. And just give us your thoughts about what Atlanta means to college athletics, and how much longer will it be before the SEC network moves from the hub in Charlotte to Atlanta, and maybe one day the SEC conference headquarters?
Well, first off, they can stay there. I mean, we'll get to Atlanta. We'll handle it. But just when I look at, number one, not only just the talent and the diversity of talent in the different, not only major sports, but even the mid-major sports throughout the state of Georgia, even outside of the city of Atlanta. You go to different counties and you're able to find, not only linemen, but skill players. They're well coached. But I do think Atlanta, if you ask guys like Bruce Pearl and Frank Martin and the top coaches in basketball and football, if you're going to keep coaching the SEC and have any success, and you border the state of Georgia, you have to have a presence in Atlanta. Just because, number one, the wealth of talent is there, the wealth of coaching is there. If you're an SEC fan, I mean, you're basically in the middle of SEC country, the SEC championships there. There's a ton of people there, but there's a ton of people there that have something in common. They all love sports, they love college sports, and they love the SEC. And I see no reason why Atlanta shouldn't be the home of the SEC. It's already the home of the College Football Hall of Fame and the SEC Championship. And in my opinion, that conference and that Hall of Fame go hand in hand. So at the end of the day, I don't think you can speak enough about how much talent's in Atlanta. But I want to make sure everybody understands how well a lot of those kids, and there's always places that don't have great coaches, but in every sport, how college ready most of those kids are. And people always say in the state of Texas, the kids are over prepared and they've already tapped their ceiling. I can understand that a little bit, but in Georgia, it's like they're all in the honey hole. Most of them play hard. And again, it's not just in Atlanta, it's everywhere.
Yeah. Kyle Orr, you're a Georgia graduate just this last year. You give great perspective working with Vince Thompson, the founder and CEO of Melt. Your thoughts about all this and what's going on at Melt and where y'all see college athletics going right now. We got the NCAA tournament. Hopefully we're going to have it this year in Indianapolis, it looks like, but the mic is yours and we're ready to hear what you have to say.
Well, I appreciate it, Rob. And it's always an honor to be on your show. And it was great having Jake come to the office last week and meet him as well. I'm a big fan of the JBoy show as well. But going off his point, I mean, with not just the players and the wealth of talent and coaching and sophistication with the GHSA, but the college sports is so popular here. And
you're breaking up a little bit. You're breaking up a little bit, Kyle. If you can do something to get your sound better, I don't know what it is, but you're making great points. But see what that is, so we can get better.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
Am I coming through clear now?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah, I'm just trying to. I don't know what it could be, but keep going. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm just off Jake's point. Yes, the sophistication of the football and the development is obviously here, and having the SC championship game, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, Chick-fil-A kickoff game, College Football Hall of Fame, moving from South Bend down here. I mean, it's just it's the intersection of the most lucrative and also the most passionate fan bases and games that take place the entire year. And so naturally, what we've got going at Melt and where we're focused right now with all this NIL legislation is we see about $8 billion being invested through all these corporations into sponsorship, marketing, TV dollars. And we think there's about $8 more billion untapped potential. There's so many with the new NIL legislation that's in the U.S. There's going to be, potential for all these student athletes, whether, you're on the women's equestrian team at Auburn, whether you're Trevor Lawrence, whether you're on the Georgia basketball team, regardless. There's so much of a presence on social media, and we think that students will be able to leverage that to, their financial benefit.
Yeah, you talked about the internship opportunities available at Melt. And Jake, you got a chance to see the Melt headquarters on the 9th floor there at the Ritz-Carlton on Piedmont in Buckhaven. I'm sorry, Buckhead, right next to Brookhaven. They're all there together. And there's so much. Gary Stoken with the Chick-fil-A Foundation, CEO of the Peach Bowl. So much is going on in Atlanta. Jake, losing the games September 5th, West Virginia, Florida State at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium there in Atlanta. Monday night, Virginia and Georgia. And the following Saturday, Auburn and North Carolina. That cost Atlanta, according to what Gary Stoken said, about $100 million. How big could a marriage with Melt or whoever and the College Football Hall of Fame be for promoting the greatest game ever, college football?
Well, I mean, Melt Sports is the best in the business. I mean, they do everything top notch. I've seen it myself, from facilities to opportunities to structure to organization. When you have a machine like that run by a guy like Vince Thompson that's been there and done that, a guy that knows the lay of the land, that's respected by everybody that's met him and that has built the monster that he's built, I think the College Football Hall of Fame would be lucky to be able to partner with somebody like Melt. And again, I was lucky enough to go see how beautiful that facility was and that recording studio was and how they do things, top notch up there. And it was a great experience for me, and hopefully, down the road and soon we can get to Atlanta. It's a great market. And Rob, I want to say this. I want to take my hat off to the sports fan in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Because, you look at the pro teams, and typically in cities like that, you're going to get a lot more love for the pro teams than you do the college teams. And obviously Athens is not even in Atlanta, but I coached at South Alabama. We went to Georgia State. I played in that dome. I saw the support that they had when they were doing their thing. And just the fans in that city are so sports crazed. And you have so many fans from different bases that are together that all share one thing in common. They love the games. They love the pageantry, and they just love football, baseball, basketball, and sports in general. And I think it really is a compliment more to the fans that there's so much want and that market's so big in Atlanta. And at the end of the day, anything that happens in Atlanta that's a sporting event is going to do great, and that's because the people that are there.
Yeah, Jimmy Hodge, you got to be there with me Friday, October 30th. We did the show at the Melt headquarters there in Atlanta. And you were and Kyle, Jimmy was one of the 4 people in America that went all over the country to rebrand Adidas. And talk in your thoughts, Jimmy, what kind of the branding? I mean, Melt does the Aflac branding campaign with Nick Saban, among other things, but pretty amazing company, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm tell you what, your timing couldn't have been better with that partnership with Saban. I mean, golly, just the type of season that Alabama had, and then Aflac being a Southern, insurance company. I mean, and the commercials were great. I don't know who came up with the idea of the blue blazer for a Saban, but it turned out to be genius. Especially the one commercial where the one guy said, Saban had asked, "Are there any questions?" And then the guy goes, "Hey, coach, how can I get one of those sweet blazers?" And Saban goes, "Well, I can't play favorites, But that whole marketing idea was just tremendous. And I mean, you multiply that, with all the different other things that you can use that type of marketing with, and combined with the sports interest of fans in the Southeast and the Atlanta area. I mean, you've got something there with limitless potential.
Yeah, Kyle, talk about the latest news from Melt and what projects or things might be on the table for the future, because you're there, you've got your finger on the pulse, you are the tip of the spear.
Absolutely. We actually, so obviously last March, the event business was completely clobbered. So Vince and the corporation lost hundreds of thousands of dollars, thousands of events. So we really have been pivoting, and I think we've spoken about this before, but right now we're positioned well because we try to keep a forward face in this industry that's been devastated. We've got the Melt U internship program going on, which has been hugely successful. We're hoping to get some live interns in the office this summer, but we'll kind of have to, keep a pulse on that with the COVID situation. But we actually have in March, we have a big announcement coming from Vince with some potential partnerships and a new launch that I can't tell you more about, and everyone should be on the lookout for that on March 1.
Yeah, look, for 20 years, you've been doing the branding for Coca-Cola. How big is Coca-Cola? The Woodruff family is synonymous. There are others, but the current leadership at Coca-Cola, how committed are they to college athletics? We know historically there have been a couple of great partnerships in college football. Well, one, Chevrolet for the longest time, but Chick-fil-A has been incredible. You wish you could clone all businesses to be that positive, but talk about that partnership.
Absolutely. I mean, Coca-Cola is the most respected brand of the entire world. You see it in every single continent, every country, every state. No matter where you go, you see Coca-Cola. And with the leadership structure right now, I'm sure it's pretty well documented that lots of employees got fired this winter. So just before Christmas, Coke let thousands of people go, and they've been conducting new interviews right now. So obviously, with our relationships and Vince's relationships with lots of their executives, like you said, over 21 years, we've stayed in close contact, but they're kind of on hold right now with March Madness coming up in Indiana, and mostly Central Indiana with Indianapolis. Coke on a few of the calls they have some marketing campaigns and activations they want to do, but all of the agencies right now are almost timid / unsure of, the foot traffic. Will there be fans, no fans? What's the protocols going to look like? And so Coke right now, their leadership structure is changing, and so it'll be interesting to see going forward. But the people that we work with in the past and the executives that do the marketing, especially the sports marketing, that Vince knows very well, our relationships are maintained very strong, and we're looking forward to some new projects down the road in 21.
Yeah. Jake Crain, you think about Atlanta. We know about the large area, the largest college sport. It is the equivalent of New York City, or what's left of that city, the media center for financial news and the regular news. It's that equivalent for sports, for college sports. And if you haven't been to the College Hall of Fame, it's an incredible venue. And Gary Stokan, and Jake, this is amazing. Gary Stokan, the CEO of the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, you know him, Kyle, you and Vince do. He told us this summer, we had him on the show, and Jimmy and I were talking with him. He took Mal Moore and him went up to the College Hall of Fame when it was back in South Bend, Indiana, toured the entire facility, and got through. And Mal Moore said, there's not a single exhibit in here about Coach Bryant. Wow. Clueless. They had problems with the breaking glass and the mobs this summer. Looks like they fixed it. But to me, the College Football Hall of Fame needs an infusion of leadership. Jake, when you think about recruiting, you see this a lot. How big tradition is, you can't put your hands around it. It's so big for branding. What do you see the College Football Hall of Fame's role being? One, just to promote the game, but also to have, I think they ought to have conferences there talking about the future of the game, because the more you know about your past and how you got where you are, the more you appreciate it, don't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you appreciate the people that got you here. I mean, all the way from, the times where they were, playing out at Rutgers and nobody knew what was going on, to, watching Patrick Mahomes make no-look passes in the Super Bowl. And I think it's there, obviously, to promote the game, but I think it's there to protect the game as well. Every time we think that we may have some big change that we like, from a rules standpoint or something, you go back and say, hey, we've done it this way for so long. We feel like the game, at least on the field, even though in my opinion, as a defensive guy, it's slanted to help offense, but hey, that's just me and my bias being a defensive coach. But, it's an altar. That's what it is to us that hold college football so dear. And especially down here in the South, where it's a way of life, where when it's football season, you already know what's going on Saturday. And, families, and you talk about Audrey in Tennessee, and we've talked about this before, how important and so many relationships have been formed from people that didn't even play the game. And I think that's another part of the College Football Hall of Fame. It's not just about players and coaches. There's other stories in there that kind of tell you the rest of the story of college football and some of the triumphs and stuff like that. So that thing needs to be protected. It needs to have the best possible people running it. And you've laid out, I think, something that I agree with. And why not, in a place that holds, not only sports, but college sports and college football so dear, like Atlanta.
Yeah, Kyle, I know you've just got a few minutes. You've got to go. Tell people right now where we are. Here it is, January 24th. March 11th last year, the widespread pandemic is declared. March 16th, that next week, there's no SEC tournament. It ends before it was over. No NCAA tournament. That's about $1 billion gain for the NCAA. They make probably 90% of their budget with it. Give us your closing comments, your gut feeling on what do you think is going to happen this year with the NCAA basketball tournament, the bubble, all that stuff up in Indianapolis, and we'll let you go.
Appreciate it, Rob. One more thing to Jake's point with the College Football Hall of Fame. When I was at Pace Academy, we actually got to tour it with our coach, Chris Slade, who was a longtime Patriot under Belichick. And we had 2 5-stars, Andrew Thomas now on the New York Giants and Jamar Salyer on Georgia. And they actually did their signing days at the College Football Hall of Fame as well. And so just taking the tour of that and, being with some top-notch recruits on our team, I think we all kind of fell in love with the place because we were the first high school team to ever be able to tour it. I think this was back in 15. And it really is a special place. And I'm really looking forward to Vince's big ideas with transforming it. Back to your closing question, my gut feeling is we will have the sort of bubble in Indianapolis, Indiana. I know they're looking at Purdue, Butler, and the University of Indiana for hosting games as well. If IU makes the tournament, they'll not be able to play at their home gym. But I would expect there to be limited patrons. I would expect foot traffic to be very limited around the arenas. And that's a lot of the activation dollars. But the TV money will be there. March Madness has to go on this year because, like you said, the NCAA makes over half of their money in marketing off this one tournament. And so I expect the bubble. I expect to be successful. But college basketball just isn't in the greatest space right now. You see Coach Crain in the news, and we really hope that the products will be there, and we're looking forward to seeing what we can do. But a lot of the leadership with the NCAA has been so ho-hum about the specific details, and we don't know the tip times, the dates. So right now it's a lot under consideration, but I expect it to be a successful and lucrative product for the NCAA.
Hey, Kyle Lord, thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday afternoon to be with us. Check them out on the web. Melt Atlanta Incorporated, founded by Vince Thompson. I went to Auburn with him I guess it was 21 years ago, founder and CEO of Melt Atlanta Inc. And you all handle close to $1 billion in these contracts and marketing and branding. And just every time we talk to you, a lot of new information comes out. But tell Vince hello. We'll be in Atlanta the first week of March. Want to come by and take y'all out and maybe even bring you some duck or some deer meat, venison tamales. We can have some fun. But what you do at Melt, you are the tip of the spear. And tell the people at the College Football Hall of Fame, we would love to have them on the show anytime, Gary Stokan included, Vince, you, because you bring a positive message. But have a great rest of your Sunday, Kyle.
Well, I appreciate you, Rob. I hope you all gentlemen have a nice afternoon as well. We got a lot coming up, and I'm excited to see you in March. And everyone stay tuned for Melt ATL's new launch, March 1st.
March 1st. Hey,
all right, Kyle, see you, buddy.
Hey, hunker down, you hairy dog. We'll talk to you soon.
Hunker down, Rob.
Oh, my God, those thighs. My God, a freshman. Jake Crain on the tackle there for the Tigers. Hodge back under center at quarterback. He's going to come in. My God, they're going to bring in the freshman from Wrightsville, Georgia, Jimmy Womack, struggling all night out there for the Dogs, and they're going to lose this game if they can't get Herschel to come in there. And Jake Crain up there in the box calling the defensive signals. Erskine Russell. Oh, my God. Yeah, I delve into
if Herschel's in the game, we're blitzing. Surprise, surprise.
Hey, this was funny. We had Pat Dye Jr. up here last week, was up here duck hunting with us. We were over around Stuttgart last week. We hunted in Keyville near Brinkley, and he was telling my son and a friend of his were home from Auburn for the weekend, and it was hilarious. He said his freshman year, he started out at Georgia before his dad got the job at Auburn. And he goes, I wrote my dad a letter, and he looked at my son and his friend, and he said, we used to write letters back then. They looked at him like a deer in the headlights. I was like, he goes, Dad, we have this freshman running back, and his name is Herschel Walker. He's huge. I've never seen someone this big and this fast. Wrote him a letter. He said the next fall, I was at Auburn. I was in school there, and one Saturday, I was over in Sewell Hall, the athletic dorm, named after Mr. Roy B. Sewell from Bremen, Georgia, where the old Polo outlet used to be, Jimmy, off of I-20. And went to Atlanta. And guys, Pat said, he goes, Dad, signal me to come over in the cafeteria before a game. He said, hey, I'd like to meet you to meet this young man we're recruiting. And he was, big kid and had on a, T-shirt, shook his hand. He said, hey, my name's Vincent. Most people call me Bo. And as soon as Bo went to get something to eat, he pulled Pat Jr. aside and said, that's going to be our Herschel. That's pretty wild. And I remember George Lapidus, great sports writer for the Memphis Press Seminar and the Skywriters Tour, Jimmy. This is when they used to all get on the airplane and they would go hit all 10 schools in the SEC. And basically it was basically a media Mardi Gras. Okay. And I remember reading the Memphis Press Seminar, August of 82, headlines, "Oh, Bo, Auburn claims a Herschel clone. And don't forget 1982, also out of Philadelphia, Mississippi, Neshoba County High School,
Marcus
Dupree. And and you know what, guys, with the I guess the de-emphasis or just the loss of so many track and field programs, we haven't seen people like them since then. It's really crazy, but it's really interesting. Jimmy, and again, when you were coming up, and Jake, I don't know, did you do track and field? I've always felt like track and field is your insurance policy for every sport you play.
Nah, I played 3 sports most time growing up, and to be honest with you, I hated conditioning, so cross country was definitely out.
Well, it was, cross country, but track and field is great, especially the shot and the
discus.
It's
great for the body, yeah. I mean, we used to tell our guys, and if you want to go work with the track team during the off season, please do it. Not only just to build muscle, but form, and change of direction and stuff like that. It's so important because you'd be amazed at how many 6'6", 245-pound athletic guys don't know how to run right.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Jimmy, chime in on that one, because when you went to La Monroe, finished at UT Chattanooga, did you do track and field in high school? I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but it's so important for the balance. And, it's also squeeze your hand as hard as you can. Squeeze it a little harder, because everybody else out here wants to win too, but only the select few want to win really bad. But talk about that, Jimmy, and then we'll go back to Jake with some more questions.
No, not really. The only guys really up to this very day that are skill position players in football, especially wideouts, running backs, a lot of those guys ran track because just doing sprints just really helped, their quickness and their strength as far as having stamina. Yeah, for running constantly, over a long period of time, and we're running a 50-yard pass pattern, being able to just jog right back to the huddle and do it again if you had to, and then for linemen, you had certain guys that would be involved in the field events, the shot, the javelin, the hammer, that type of thing. But other than that, no, you didn't have the workout equipment that was so sophisticated like it is now, and you have guys doing this 365 days a year virtually, and then add to that, you didn't have all the camps that were available, to players in the summer, and for anybody that's has a reasonable chance to possibly be a Division I football player, you didn't have those camps that were open to anybody and everybody, where a coach could see you or see the potential you might have, even though they might not have been aware of you before then. So things have changed so much, just from a conditioning standpoint. And like at Class 5A high schools in Texas, I mean, you even have strength and conditioning coaches, because those schools are so big and they have the financial support from their booster clubs to be able to really develop their players to their utmost potential.
Yeah, Jake, looking around, and you do the JBoy podcast, 8 months, over 250 episodes. Let's flip back over to basketball. And we were talking, you and I, off the air yesterday afternoon about this Auburn basketball team with Sharif Cooper. And then you're going to have Jabari Smith coming in out of Tyrone, Georgia, Sandy Creek. You made a great point. Bruce Pearl goes over into Georgia and says, hey, who wants to be a first-round draft pick? And the guys come across the Chattahoochee, and he's building a really powerful brand. They can't go to the NCAA tournament this year at Auburn. They're taking the penalty this year related to the Chuck Person mess back September of 2017. And I look for other schools to eventually have to pay the man. But so far, I know Auburn's gotten it out of the way, and that's smart. Why, look, uncertainty affects the markets in a negative way. You hate seeing that. Yeah, but talk about how, again, Bruce Pearl and Nate Oates are turning the state of Alabama into, I don't know if it's going to be like it is in football, but they're well on their way to doing it. Look at Nate Oates in only his second year, but you made some good points yesterday. Hey, not so fast on Alabama, and when they stop double teaming Sharif Cooper when a certain player comes back, and hey, you go ahead and talk about that because you made some incredible points. In fact, I think you could close a winning case in front of the Supreme Court with what you said.
Oh man, well, I was almost a lawyer. I always enjoy kind of arguing and debating, but just a lot of reading. When talking about Auburn first, I kind of made the comparison. Their offensive flow when Sharif Cooper's in the game is like a beautiful Van Gogh or a Monet or the Mona Lisa or the Sistine Chapel. And when he goes out, it turns into a 6-year-old finding a magic marker and drawing all over the bathroom wall. So it just shows you, one, because what separates Sharif Cooper, he's a great driver of the basketball. He can pass with both hands, but it's his vision and how he manipulates defenders with his eyes. If you watch, very rarely does Sharif Cooper look where he's passing the ball. And you say, oh, well, that sounds pretty simple. That's one of the hardest things to do and see the whole court. That's the difference. It's kind of like a linebacker with incredible peripheral vision, which is what I think makes a linebacker great. When you're able to see everything to the left and your right, it affects what you do going forward and going backward, typically faster than everybody else. So he's playing at a different speed. He's not afraid to draw contact. But if you look at Auburn's roster, JT Thor may be the best player with the highest ceiling that's on the roster right now. He's a 16.5, 17-year-old, just turned 18 freshman that's going to be one of the best players in the country out there playing guard. But Bruce Pearl does an unbelievable job in the state of Georgia. But you look at what Nate Oates has done at Alabama, and I'm going to be honest with you, I think Bruce Pearl and them having success at Auburn has helped Alabama, just like Alabama having success and Auburn beating them every now and then in football really helps in recruiting at the end of the day, or at least has in the past. So I've always said that if the state can have two great basketball teams, it'll make everybody better. And I'll say this. We all talk about Alabama and Auburn, and that's great, and they're going to keep being fantastic. But what Andy Kennedy's doing at UAB, they're 11-2, and not a lot of people are talking about them. So the state of Alabama and Richie Riley at South Alabama is doing a heck of a job. He's going to get a Power 5 job soon. So if you look at the state of Alabama in basketball all the way up and down, it's the golden era.
Yeah, it really is. Let me do this real quick. I want to say something about one of our sponsors, Red River Ford Toyota, Wynne, Arkansas. Easy to get to from Memphis, 45 minutes on I-40 if you're going west. Get off at the Forest City exit. If you're coming toward Memphis from Little Rock or Forest City, you live in Forest City, go north 11 miles. Easy to find. Red River Ford Toyota. John Dobbs Jr. from Memphis, the Dobbs family, synonymous in the car and truck business. Been around a long time. They're back. John Dobbs Jr. is part of the Red River Auto Group, and they are in Wynne. They bought the dealership first week of October. Justin Wynn's the general manager. Rusty Howard's the sales manager. Austin Futrell is in the service department. We had him on the remote on Friday. They're there. Their service department, by the way, is open on Saturdays until noon. They do great work. They can help you. New and used cars, trucks, and SUVs. I know Justin's driving that great-looking Toyota Tundra black pickup truck with the 35-inch mud tires. It is duck season. It is deer season. It is the South. It's America. You need a good car or truck that's dependable. You can get the process started online to where when you get there, it might take 5 or 10 minutes, and you are driving off the lot. Red River Ford Toyota, Wynne, Arkansas. Great to have them as a sponsor here on Sidelines. And also Tom Dorian, the Dorian Insurance Agency, 6240 Poplar Avenue. I've known Tom 43 years, University of Memphis alumnus, CBHS alumnus, started 3 years on the offensive line in college football, guys, tough as nails, father of 5. He's a great friend of mine. He's my insurance agent. Audrey and I work with him. Homeowners, life insurance, property and casualty. Go have that conversation with Tom Dorian. Everybody's All-American, Tom Dorian. And also, if you're like most Americans, you might go years without making a claim on your insurance. They have a program that returns up to 25% of your premium. That is 6240 Poplar Avenue, 901-328-5858, the Dorian Agency. Guys, this is a lot of fun. You're talking about, the state of Georgia and all these athletes and all. And then you flip back over and you say, and whoever wants to answer this question first, go ahead. The University of Georgia, they went to the Final Four in 1983 out in Albuquerque. And Dominique Wilkins was on the team out of the little.
No, he was gone in 82. That was the first year after he left. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah, he came out early.
That's right. And you know what's funny? The first year, I believe, after Ralph Sampson who was from Petersburg, Virginia, home of that big crater during the war, the year after he had left, Virginia, remember, made it to the Final Four with Lee Raker.
Yes.
And then what's funny, Tennessee, the year after Peyton left, they won the national championship with T. Martin. It's always kind of funny how the year after, it's never when you think it's going to happen, or either it's not that easy. But why can't Georgia get it together in basketball? And Jake, you want to take a stab at it first, and then you, Jimmy?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I think Anthony Edwards last year, obviously he was very ball dominant. He was an unbelievable player, but as a team, they were still missing a few pieces and really had no identity outside of Anthony Edwards. If he wasn't having a good game, then everybody else was kind of hesitant to make shots and kind of take a leadership role offensively. And then defensively, they had some pieces but really didn't have anything in the middle outside of Kamara. But this year, I look at their point guard, Severe Wheeler, and he does a lot of great things. But what he really struggles with is he tries to drive and finish at the rim, but with his height and his ability, he's not able to do the things that Sharif Cooper's able to do and get rid of the ball at the last second hanging in the air. Typically when he goes up for a shot, it gets blocked and he's not able to draw a foul because guys are just going straight up. And physics doesn't let him be able to get the ball up by the basket. So I think he's got to kind of calm down and try and run the offense through guys like Kamara, who's a power forward, a guy that can play center, a guy that can shoot the three. You look at KD Johnson, the guy that just got back, who was sitting out kind of like Sharif Cooper was, who's their superstar. He's one of four guys, I think, in this league as freshmen. You look at Sharif Cooper, Cam Thomas at LSU, him, and then Marcus Moody at Arkansas that are just absolutely excellent players. So I know Tom Crean knows ball. He's a good coach. But until Severe Wheeler is able to run the offense as more on the perimeter, kind of a quick drive and kick, I think they'll be more efficient offensively.
Jimmy Hodge, you look around, so many people right there in Atlanta. And again, your thoughts on why Georgia can't get it together, at least not consistently in basketball. And in football, if you look at their fans, I mean, they feel like they're an elite program, and they really are. But their neighbors around them, Clemson, Tennessee, Georgia Tech, Auburn, Alabama, Florida State, Miami, have won a combined 26 national championships in football the last 40 years since Georgia last won their title in 1980. And I think it's particularly insulting and hard for Georgia fans to stomach the fact that Clemson's national championship in 81 was led by Homer Jordan, who was from Athens, Georgia. 2016, Deshaun Watson from Gainesville, Georgia. And 2018, Trevor Lawrence out of Cartersville, Georgia. And all four of Clemson's great football coaches, Frank Howard, The Rock, Charlie Pell, Danny Ford, and now Dabo Swinney, are all Alabama guys.
Yeah, and you throw Charlie Pell in there.
Yeah, I did. From Charlie Pell, absolutely.
Yeah. Because he was really important, because after the Frank Howard years, they had a couple of dry spells. They had a Red Parker, and then Charlie came in there and really got them going in the right direction. Then when Charlie went to Florida, then Danny really started a great run there. Well, it's I don't know. I mean, they've had good teams for a long time. They just haven't been able, in certain cases, to win that one game. I mean, the one loss they had, they lost in the Sugar Bowl in the last seconds to a Dan Marino Pitt team. But after they won the national championship in '80, you're right. Clemson beat them. They had a great team with the Fridge and Homer Jordan and Perry Tuttle and those guys. They got to the national championship game the very next year and lost to a really good, Penn State team. They've come close, but when you lose close games like that, it just comes down to one or two plays. I mean, there wasn't anything wrong, with their talent level, but they did certainly lose steam after the Dooley retirement in '88. I mean, Goff was not the right choice,
Yeah.
And you've got to have, the right guy. And then Donnan came in to replace him. He was okay, but not what Georgia fans were, hoping for. And then Rick came in with, great success, the first 4 seasons. And then eventually tailed off. It's just hard to really put a finger on it because they haven't been bad. They've always had players good enough to win with, but I don't know. I wish I could have seen Eric Georgia play on super talented Georgia teams because he played on Ray Goff teams and had tremendous numbers and all that. And a lot of it's just timing and also the SEC has just become ridiculously deep. I mean, we've had since the BCS began in '98 with Tennessee winning the national championship. Then you've had 6 different teams in the conference win the national championship. So it's hard. It's hard even getting out of the SEC to win the SEC. I mean, if you win the SEC championship, your chances of winning the national championship are really strong. So that's a big obstacle just, to win the SEC. It's just one of those things where you just have to keep recruiting good players and plugging and hope Saban hangs it up before long.
All right, another question now. Jake, we got February, first Wednesday in February. It's going to be here before we know it. Really, it's a week from this Wednesday. There are schools like Vanderbilt, South Carolina, now Tennessee. Throw them in the mix. Auburn, Coach Brian Harsin comes in from Boise State. Who is most likely to make up the most ground in recruiting? Because Auburn's sitting there in the 50s in recruiting. I know everybody can come back next year, and that's not going to happen. They're getting a hall pass on eligibility. But of those schools, and who else in the SEC is most likely to pick up the most ground or make up the most ground in the next week and a half for this next signing period, the final part of the class of 21 signing period?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think to answer that, it's kind of two-pronged because it's circumstantial. It's a great question. The first thing I'll say is it's obviously Auburn, just for the fact that you look which school has the most to offer. I mean, Tennessee right now is staring down the barrel of some NCAA stuff, so that kind of takes them out of it. It's tough to get recruits in when you probably know you're not going to be playing in the postseason for at least a year, and you're going to be playing on a team that has reduced scholarships, which means you're going to have to do more, which is going to be more taxing on your body. All those things go into the thought process nowadays of these kids. But, the second thing I look at is I think this year's weird with rankings because with the way the transfer portal is, unless they're going to rank guys that are in the transfer portal, if I'm Auburn and I'm sitting there with 13 signees and I still got spots for 12 more guys, well, there's a few recruits out there. Most of them have signed in the early signing period, which is really the true signing period now. But you still got guys like Trevin Wallace, Dante Balfour, Jadarius Perkins is a corner out of Mississippi Gulf Coast, and as Zach Eckers is on hard. I think Auburn will land some high school kids, but they're going to make their hay in the portal. So unless, they're going to rank, a guy that transfers from a Power 5 school or a Group of 5 school, I really don't think you can look at the rankings because I guarantee you that the Auburn coaches would much rather have a guy with Power 5 experience or Division I or even high-level D2 or FCS experience than a kid coming straight out of high school, especially for the positions of need that Auburn needs. Let's think about this, which is what? The offensive line, preferably tackles, and the defensive line, preferably pass rushers. And it's tough to have kids come straight out of high school and be able to play those two positions. So I think it's tough to say you got to look at the rankings and figure it out, especially at the time frame that Harsin took over. And I think they're going to fill those scholarship slots probably with experienced guys in the transfer portal, at least 70% of them. So I think it's kind of tough to say at the end of the day with rankings, but I'd have to say Auburn, Shane Beamer, they've had a lot of turnover in their staff. They basically turned over and went to Auburn outside of Tracy Rocker leaving for the Eagles today. But I would say Auburn.
And one other thing, Pete Thamel putting a report out there that Tracy Rocker is being considered for an NFL defensive line position. Look, Tracy left Auburn after the 2010 season. His 2 years there, they'd won the national championship, went up to the Titans. He's bounced around a number of college programs since then. You think Pete Thamel, by the way, never has anything good when it comes to Auburn and most SEC schools. He is, again, one of those people who's so negative, he would have been crying and lamenting the death of the candle when the light bulb was invented. But real quick, and then I want Jimmy's thoughts.
I mean, it's kind of hard to get mad at a guy for taking the NFL job. You'd much rather lose coaches to the NFL than, some middle school team out in, Odessa, Texas, I guess you could say. But Again, I think the NFL really honestly fits Tracy Rocker's coaching style a lot better than college. Not that he wasn't a good recruiter, but he wasn't one of those guys that was going to get lost in the recruiting world and really be a guy out there on the trail that's a force that everybody's worried about. He was going to get kids in and coach them up, and Auburn was going to have D linemen that were very well coached. Well, in the NFL, you ain't got to worry about recruiting. So I think it's a good move for Tracy. I don't think you can get mad at him. I think some names to keep an eye on. Brick Haley, who was let go at Missouri, I think that'd be a stretch. I think you'll see Vic Soto from USC, one of the top recruiters in the country, and a nice little pipeline out there out on the West Coast in Arizona especially. But it would not surprise me if Brian Harsin went to the NFL and grabbed the guy.
And he obviously Rodney Garner doesn't want to stay, or he doesn't want Rodney Garner, or whatever.
I think that relationship has run its course.
Yeah, and also Travis Williams not being retained as linebacker coach. It's interesting, but that's it. People have to make their decisions. But Jimmy Hodge, your thoughts on this?
No, I mean, the NFL's perfect for Tracy. I mean, what he likes doing best is coaching defensive linemen, and he'll be right at home there. You don't have to worry about recruiting or any of that. It's just nuts and bolts teaching up and coming players with tremendous ceilings just how to become NFL players and the intricacies of defensive line play at that level. So I think it's perfect for him. What Auburn needs clearly are coaches that not only are very energetic recruiters, but they're also good position coaches. And I think obviously that's what Harsin's looking for. We've talked about it repeatedly. Auburn just needs to find the best caliber player they can at each position, and obviously the transfer portal is going to be a big part of that. But as Jake said in the past, you also can't be too reliant on it. You have to pick and choose those guys at the different positions to where they're almost all going to be veteran players who can not only help your team right now, but also mentor some of the younger players that are learning the ropes of playing at this level also. So, a program like Auburn that's had success in the SEC for a long period of time, I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to trot good football players out there. But they just have to, again, have a staff that again, is going to be just as energetic on the recruiting trail as they are teaching those guys in practice every day.
Yeah, and some guys, I know Tracy Rocker is regarded as a great developer of talent. He's coached 6 guys that have gone on to be first-team All-American. Rodney Garner, 41 of his linemen over the years have gone on to the NFL. But you're right, sometimes they just run the course. He may end up at Tennessee. It just depends on – now nothing's going to happen until they get a new coach. And I bet you by Wednesday, Tennessee will be announcing their new coach. Jake, again, we've talked so much about the transfer portal. The NCAA is going to make a decision here. They'll probably cave in. Guys can go wherever they want. I think this kind of stuff is so crazy that it collapses on its own weight and it basically just devours itself. Do you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be a one-year thing. To be honest with you, I don't think it's going to be something that happens, because the problem you run into is you're going to have coaches stop wanting to coach in college football because they can't build a culture, because they can't keep a backup at any position for more than a year and a half. And the guys aren't sticking around to go through it and earn that spot as a redshirt sophomore, or maybe as a sophomore. There'll always be true freshmen that play and stuff like that, but you really start teaching, okay, well, if you don't have instant success, well, then just go somewhere else. And once you do that so many times throughout the amount of teams that you have in college football, eventually every team outside of the ones that are just consistently dominating, so let's just say Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, and these teams, they're not going to have the ability to retain anybody. And now if you're a guy that's a junior at Texas A&M, and they're counting on you to come back as a senior and be a stud, and Alabama's got the best line and the best quarterback, and all they need is one stud receiver, and you can transfer there with no penalty, it's gonna ruin everything. You won't be able, especially with only a 14 playoff, you will have no parity. It'll be even worse than it is now. And from a coaching standpoint, it'd be an absolute nightmare.
And look, we talked about this, and you've been a strong advocate, and I agree, and Jimmy agrees, the 8-team college football playoff. And I think we're going toward that. You know, you get the 5 Power 5. They give us 3 at-larges, but it stops the whining. Got to do something about this. But, guys, I'm excited. And, Jimmy, we've got college basketball right now. The SEC, it's weird watching the games because there's really no home court advantage. I don't know what we're learning from this, but what we are learning is that this is the first basketball season with all these restrictions on the crowds and everything. We heard all the preseason drama, all the naysayers out there. Oh, we'll never be able to play football. That's, you know what? Don't ever confuse what certain people want with what's going to happen most likely. They don't know jack about the kind of people that are college athletes. Jimmy, we didn't hear any real drama about college basketball. And you brought it up about the ACC. That conference is struggling this year. And is the SEC, based on what you're seeing, the best conference? We know about Gonzaga. Mark Few, heck of a coach. Gonzaga, not Gonzaga, Gonzaga, the Zags. But what do you think about what I just said?
I got to go with the Big Ten. They've really had a nice resurgence. I'd go with the Big Ten and the Big 12. Texas has had a tremendous year. Oklahoma's is good. Kansas for the first time in forever is not going to win the regular season a Big 12 title. Texas Tech, they were in the same Final Four with Auburn 2 years ago. Came within a Virginia 3-point shot on their final possession of regulation from winning the national championship. And so the Big 12 is really good. But again, we've said it multiple times. I mean, Gonzaga and Baylor are just, they're at a different level from everybody else. And then you've got a cluster of 4 or 5 teams after that. And then from that point on, you got 40 teams that are just, like I said, you can just throw them in a box and draw out a ticket, and any of those teams could just about beat everybody else. So the NCAA tournament's going to be unbelievable just because of the unpredictability and the fact that you have that single elimination situation. But we might have a case now, though, that the tournament might be delayed a week or two with the news today that Michigan has suspended all athletic activities for 2 weeks because of up to 15 positive tests. And, a lot of people consider outside of Gonzaga and Baylor, Michigan to be one of those 2 or 3 teams, along with Villanova, as in that next group of teams behind those 2 I mentioned. So this is still a work in progress, but the NCAA is going to do whatever they have to do to get this tournament played, because again, the NCAA tournament creates 90% of the revenue that the NCAA corporate office is able to operate on every year.
Yeah. All right. Big 12 SEC challenge coming up this week. I know Auburn's going to go to number 2 Baylor on the road. Davion Mitchell, former Auburn player, transferred after playing 17 minutes a game a couple of years ago in Auburn's Final Four run. He's at Baylor. He's going to have a matchup with Sharif Cooper. Start with that, Jake, and talk about the other matchups in the SEC Big 12 Challenge in basketball. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at the schedule Auburn's played this year. I mean, you play Gonzaga early without Sharif Cooper, and everybody's saying, man, we wish we could have seen Auburn play Gonzaga with Sharif Cooper. I'm not saying they would have won the game, but I think it'd have been closer. But now you get to see him against Baylor, one of the best defensive teams in the country. Scott Drew does a great job. They're very long. They're very athletic. They play very hard. And they've really had a lot of success lately. Davion Mitchell was a guy that wasn't going to play in front of Jared Harper. It's another Georgia kid that Bruce Pearl recruited who turns out to be an elite guard. Imagine him on the team What's crazy is if you really think about it, Isaac Okoro should be on this team, which is absolutely insane. But when you look, I think really the SEC, which I don't think has an elite team. Alabama's very good, especially when they're shooting. But Baylor is an elite team. I think it's going to be a great matchup. Justin Powell being back, I think he'll be back by Baylor, would be huge to give you another option. It's going to be a heck of a fight. And I know Alabama's got a really good matchup too. I'm trying to remember who it's against, Jimmy, but I know there's a couple of really good games. And I love when conferences like this kind of go across the pond and play a team from another Power 5 conference. And they typically put the good teams against each other. That's why I love these challenges. That's why I love these matchups. And if you're a team like Auburn that can't go to the postseason or the SEC tournament, what a way to make a statement than to go out there and have a chance to beat one of the top teams. Because I think it's Gonzaga, then Baylor, then everybody else.
Yeah, and based on what you've seen, Jimmy, look at these matchups. You're right. The Big 12 basketball is really strong. You say the Big 10's the best conference. Where do you rank the Big 12?
Well, right there, 1A.
It's okay.
And you'd have the SEC at number 3, the ACC from top to bottom, easily the weakest in my lifetime, and then the Pac-12 in their usual position.
How did the ACC end up in this mess? Yeah. How did the ACC
and Jake, we hadn't even been able to talk about Larry Scott yet. That could take up 2 shows.
Yeah, they're what, good riddance is what I gotta say. When it comes down to that, but I mean,
yeah. But I do think that this SEC Big 12 matchup, it's played at the perfect time of year in mid-season because it gives a more realistic measure of where all these programs are, as opposed to when the ACC and the Big Ten have their challenge in the first week of December. Those teams have had no chance to develop an identity or, just give you an idea of what team they have. And that's not really an accurate barometer of how good those teams are or where they're at when they play that early in the season. And not to mention that you have some guys that might not, well, depending on what this transfer rule, but up to now, you had transfers that had to wait a year, but a lot of them would be eligible, for the second semester. So that also would give you a more accurate, well, this year it still would, a more accurate measure of where these teams are. So yeah, there's going to be some really good basketball when those Big 12 and SEC teams meet.
Hey, I want to do this. We are out of time, guys. Jimmy Hodge up in Chicago, thanks so much for joining us. Kyle Orr, Melt Atlanta, appreciate you as always. Gordon Ford, Jake Crain, host of the JBoy podcast. This has been a lot of fun. And Jake, tell them real quick how they can follow you on the JBoy podcast. And let me say this too, before Jake says this. Look for a podcast early this week with Jimmy and Jake and I. We're going to be watching closely the Tennessee developments. We'll hit with, I don't want to use the term breaking news. We're going to hit with what we think we know or feel like is going to happen, but keeping you up to date. Check out our website at sidelines.live for information. Again, check out all of our sponsors. We love them. Support our sponsors. We're here for them. We're here to serve you. But Jake, how can they follow you on the JBoy podcast? And we'll say goodbye.
Definitely. Well, we put out a podcast every day. We deal with all 3 sports, mainly SEC, every team, do a little bit of national stuff. But you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast, on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, at the JBoy Show, JBoy. Got some more huge guests coming up this next week. I just dropped one with Roy Philpott and Jay from the SEC Network and Jay Phillips from AU Hoops News. We're talking SEC basketball, our big Sunday recap. I got a huge guest list this week. Making a huge guest announcement. Really excited about a couple of the guys we're bringing on this week. So check us out. No politics, just ball, and you'll probably learn something along the way. So really appreciate it, Rob. Always love coming on here with you guys. This is always one of my favorite times during the weekend.
Hey, let me just say this. We are a sports radio show. We talk about sports. We find excuses to win. As David Goggins says, don't quit because you're tired, quit because you're done. Go out and find somebody you don't know with the expectation of nothing in return and help them out. That is life. That's the lessons of life. We're blessed to have our listeners. Sidelines.live will be back with you this week. Check us out, sidelines.live. Good night, everybody. Hold on. Hey, guys, hold on one second.